Welcome back. Well, Tobago will celebrate 60 years since being an independent nation. Depends on who you ask. Some will say there isn't much to celebrate, while others will tell you there is a lot that must be celebrated. Administrations have changed over time, each bringing something different to you, the citizens. And there are some groups who insist on putting enough pressure to keep important matters on the front burner. I'm now joined by PEP leader Philip Alexander, who prides his party as one of those. Now, good morning, Mr. Alexander. How are you?
I'm fine. Good morning. Thank you very much for having me. Good morning to your viewers and listeners.
So let me ask you, do we have a lot to celebrate?
Do you want the list of things that we don't have to celebrate? I cannot think of a list of things that we have to celebrate. Trinidad and Tobago is a country that still wants to consider itself a republic, but our justice system and our laws are failing the people. We want to consider ourselves a democracy, but we're not getting a democratic handling of state institutions, and all people are not getting equal treatment before the state. We were a successful nation in sugar, in cocoa, in oil and gas. We're successful in nothing anymore. We've lost all the $3 trillion that the country earned. We've built bubbles with Chinese money, put the country in debt. We're broken, we owe everybody. We have one of the highest murder rates in the world for any country that is not actually at war. We are one of the most corrupt countries on the planet. I can't think of a thing that
now,
we could
these are issues that a lot of countries also have.
Well, while other countries have similar, I made sure to add highest in the world, most in the world. We're not like other countries. For all the bad things we lead, for all the good things we fail. You could pick anything. Let's talk about people, the vast majority of people in Trinidad and Tobago, who when it floods, stand up in their yard up to their ankles in water, while the pipes that bring the water into their house are dry for days, dry for weeks, dry for months. What do you tell them? We have the largest deposit of pitch in the world in Trinidad. We have the worst roads in the world in Trinidad. Tell me, we get more water falling from the sky for free than we could use in 10 years each year, but we are desalinating water at the cost of $500 million, while our drainage system designed to capture the water in the hills and throw it away in the sea. I want you to tell me anything that you think that we should be celebrating. Yesterday, the Prime Minister pointed out the successes of some of our athletes, and I want to applaud those athletes for doing the jobs that they do. But the state is not responsible for that. In the most part, we abandon our athletes until they succeed, and then we show up to wave our hand. Trinidad has nothing to celebrate right now. The potential of this country is there. We have some of the best things in the world. We have the best climate.
Do you think it's a lack of will or a lack of resources?
I think it's a lack of political choice. I think we've had two political parties controlled by mafias for 60 of our years. When the British were here, colonization was basically a means to exploit countries that you don't live in. And when we got our independence, we handed it over to locals who did the same exploitation. Trinidad has been looted and exploited for 60 years. Take a look at our banking. In your bank account in the bank, if you do nothing, if you put $1,000 in the bank today and leave it for a year, you will come back and find yourself most probably in debt. The bank takes out fees for every single thing. I went to my bank last week and asked them for my statement. They say, we don't give statements anymore, you get your statements online. I said, if I wanted a statement now, could I get one? She said, yes, it's $20 a page. I can go and photocopy something in the store next door for 50 cents. The same piece of paper, the same printer, the same ink in my bank is $20. So what am I paying the fees for? I don't know. There's nobody controlling or regulating the fees. The financial services sector running wild. We get 0.0% interest on our bank, on our balances. They take that money and lend it out to friends and financiers for 15, 16, 17%, and they declare their billions of dollars profit. The people who put the money in the bank, they get nothing. The government has a responsibility to that. All of these things fall in the parliament, in the cabinet, in the government. I'm not trying to bash people. I want a better country.
Now, administrations have changed over time, and yet still we're seeing the same issues confronting citizens, what would you recommend citizens do differently? I mean, they always say the power is in your finger, but time and time again, we still see the same issues.
You just answered the question. The power is in our voting finger. You just answered the question beautifully. I want to tell you, Trinidadians have been vacillating between two political colors, ketchup and mustard, that have been representing the same mafia, the same contract mafia, the same food mafia, the same banking mafia. They deal with those two parties like and alike. The system doesn't change. I want to draw to Trinidad and Tobago an example. Earlier last week, the Minister of Works put the state in a precarious position when he admitted that everything I said about the David death strip was correct. That it needed fixing, that it needed being reduced to one lane, that it needed to have it lit, that it needed to interrupt the road surface so you feel it in your steering. He admitted to all of those things and then went on to say that he's not doing it right now. So everybody else who dies or gets injured in that roundabout since that interview now has his interview, his own words, as evidence as to why the state is putting people at risk. We have all of the paint, we have all of the barrels, all of the lights, we even have the milling machine to mill the roads right now. So what's keeping the Minister of Works back from securing the David death strip? And that's just one thing. That's just one thing to look at and wonder, why do we have these different versions of the same thing in office every day? And they're giving us the same level of incompetence and allowing the same amount of looting to take place.
Now, you've been around for quite some time, and I've seen you go around to different communities and so on. I want to ask you this question. What do you think you can bring differently to citizens? And what do you think has been your greatest contribution to this country?
Well, thank you for that question. And the thing that we bring, I am the leader of the party, but the thing that the Progressive Empowerment Party brings is leadership, vision-led leadership. Take, for example, Cocorate. Under the St. James overpass, we who live in the West, because I live in the West, we've lived with flooding under the St. James overpass in Cocorate for 50 years. I went to the place where the flooding takes place to see what is the reason, and found that the road was higher than, that there is a berm of dirt higher than the road and the drain. So unless the water ran uphill, it couldn't get to the drain. The drain was clogged. There was no way for the water to get in. The workers at the Ministry of Works and local government heard me and went there and cleared the drain and lowered the berm and created entrances for the water to get to the drain. And since then, we've had 3 days of massive rainfall and not even a puddle. This is what Trinidadians want. They want somebody in government to take care of the things. Pave the roads, make sure the place not flooding, make sure we have water in the tap. If we end up in an emergency, our ambulance is outside the door in 15 minutes or less.
These were also campaign promises, huh? These were, I mean, I've interviewed many politicians, many aspiring MPs who actually were elected into office, and these issues are still here.
We have launched a campaign a little over a year now called Philip Will Fix It. And Philip Will Fix It came from the public, saying that anything that they bring to me, that if I highlight it, if we get involved, it gets fixed. TFTech workers, WASA workers, ministry, even immigration workers. Workers are happy to work when directed, and I go and I direct them and I say, look, this needs to be done this way, and they come and they fix it. TNTech changed a pole in less than 11 hours in opposite West Mall that was slowly collapsing for weeks. Nobody pointed it out. I did a video, TNTech went, in 11 hours there was a tree fell across Park Street in high winds, blocked all 4 lanes. I went to do a video half hour after the tree fell. The fire service saw my video, jumped in that truck. They came in 15 minutes, they chopped up the tree and moved it out of the way before traffic started. I can give you many of these examples. What we bring to the table is a willingness to get up, get outside there and get it done. I fixed roads in my community on the Emancipation Day holiday. I went out there with workers. We got contributions from the neighbors. We put the gravel and the cement and the water together, shoveled it in the holes, and now we have less potholes to deal with. And these are the things that I bring, and we, the Progressive Empowerment Party, bring. Right now, we have Edward Martinez of Trinity Lighting heard my plan for the baby death strip, and he bought the lights and shipped them. The engine that we're clearing them now. We have another company donated the barrels. We have another company spray painting the barrels in Tobago orange. In a couple of days, we are going to put these lit barrels on either side of the baby death strip so that people who are not aware that the highway is about to end in concrete will have a reason to slow down. And that's all that needed to be done there.
Do you think we have an issue of prioritizing matters that the public care about?
The answer to that is yes. And I think that the reason is there's no political will. The two political parties that have exchanged power in this country for the past 30 years, they exist as a tug of war for political power, not to represent the people. So we've realized that what the people lack the most is a political movement that will represent them and get their stuff done. People have stopped calling them member of parliament. I see Dave Tanko and Rudal Morilal, who are the MPs down in Oropouche, East and West, jumping into the conversation to talk about the baby death strip after we've solved the problem. I see people showed up in Paria to try and help get a rescue for the divers after we raised the issue. It was a carnival weekend, nobody was taking it on. There's an issue going on right now in Trinidad in Wildflower Park. People are putting up signs and putting security and preventing the public from using the park. We need the government and the opposition to come there and deal with that. They are in office, that's their role, that's their responsibility, that's their job. The people not getting that from those in public office. So it's not just priority. If you looked at the issue, I am hearing the Minister of Public Utilities literally quoting me by saying they are going to decentralize WASA into 5 regions. That is a progressive empowerment party policy. We've told Trinidad and Tobago that the solution to flooding and water problems in your taps is capture, hold, treat, distribute. Wherever the water collects, we call that a flood. But if we sink retention ponds right there, then the flood collects in cisterns, and those cisterns can be pumped into treatment facilities to put water in your taps 24/7.
Now, there are several other political parties on the landscape. And time again, the power is in the finger. We see, it appears as though some citizens aren't just ready for a newer party to come in. How difficult has it been for the PEP to stand its ground on the political field?
I want to tell you something, ma'am. You asked the best questions of any interview I have ever had. It's so poignant. I want to tell you, it's been extremely difficult. In the start, it was all about, an ex-party, more people want to come and loot the treasury, look, more people looking for work, there's more PNM, there's more UNC. They give you every other version of yourself than what you're trying to be. And we've had to stand our ground, to use your words, and make sure that the public sees that we're neither fish nor fowl. We're connected to neither the PNM nor the UNC. We're not joining with anybody. We contested elections. We beat the PNM in Baby South in the by-election. We contested elections. We were the 3rd largest party with 29 candidates in the 2020 election. So we want them to realize that we're neither connected to neither the PNM nor the UNC, because both of those parties have continuously failed the public, and people are slowly waking up to the reality that voting identity politics and voting race, while it makes me comfortable that the person leading the looting in the government looks like me, it does nothing for me. And what we've been trying to sell them is leadership that delivers real representation. And people tell me, all that work you're doing outside there, we've been in Maruga, Gandhi Village, St. Madeleine, Cashew Gardens, last 4 weekends. We've done work in all of those communities. Just those 4 is the last 4 we've been to. People saying, they will take all that work you're doing and vote PNM and vote UNC. And I say, you know what? I don't care. I am going to do this. We are going to show up. We're going to work harder. We're going to do more. We're going to fix every single thing that we could fix, and trust that people at some point are going to realize that government is not a friend and family plan. Government is about voting into office people who will take care of the things that you need to make your life good and you have your own life. You don't need government in your bedroom. You don't need government in your kitchen. We need government that understands the 90,000 acres of farmland we have available shouldn't be paired with the 30,000 active registered farmers we have. with a goal towards reducing the price of food, saving foreign exchange, creating labor, creating jobs for the idle labor in the country. Our fishermen are left languishing. We created a fry shack in Carnage, and now nothing. They're open for 2 months. We're building community centers all over the country, but we're not handing it over to the communities. There is an actual fishing depot on the beach in Moruga where Columbus came ashore. That needs a roof, it needs windows, it needs doors, it needs cleaning. There are dogs going in there to make puppies. The government built a version of it halfway finished. So the people have one that can work and one that not finished. That is not representation. That is not governance, regardless of who they look like.
Will you say that the PDP is gaining momentum?
I do not want to toot my own horn, but I want to tell you, everywhere we go, the public response is phenomenal. So I don't know if it has anything to do with gunman in your hole, because that was a big thing for a while. That is Dubai, I understand. And that was a funny joke that my words ended up in Zesta song, but it made me massively popular in communities that before that would not have heard my voice. We are getting a lot of positive feedback. And I think that the biggest example of it is the amount of people that choose us first, that come to us first before they even go to the authorities. They come to us, they believe. And that's the thing, we're selling, all political parties. We're not selling bread, we're not selling crime solutions, we're selling trust. We're selling belief that we will do the job, that if we get into office, Fatima College and Bokorapo Senior Comprehensive cannot continue to exist side by side and one be a prestige school and one be a failed school. Somebody should have addressed that and fixed that a long time ago. We need to fix all our schools. And there are successful countries in the world. I say all the time, I quote Anthony Robbins, success leaves clues. Go to the countries where these things work, copy what they're doing, and get it to work for your country.
Now, I've taken notes earlier in the conversation. You spoke about, the UNC and the PNM. I want to touch on the PDP. Have you met with members of the PDP? Because your stories are similar.
We've not met since the Tobago victory. I endorsed the PDP in Tobago. I was surprised at the speed with which Watson Duke tried to establish something in Trinidad. We're watching that. Some of the things that we say might contradict some of the things that they say. I do not know what the future holds, but if there is any chance of us talking to any other political parties, it would be parties that have not been in government before, and I mean central government in Trinidad, and it would be parties that are willing to go on the ground and address the needs of the people in whatever way they see fit. The fact that they're showing up means something. That's something positive. It's not enough to create a political party, go by the EDC and register 3 letters and say you're a party. A political party is about representation, it's about leadership, it's about giving the people hope. If Watson Duke and the PDP are doing that, and they are progressive, we are progressive, I have no problem sitting down talking to them. We've met with Nikolai Edwards. He has his small progressive party in San Fernando West, and he came to a meeting when we were in San Fernando. We chatted a little bit, it was an enjoyable meeting. I met with Steve Alvarez this weekend of the National Democrats. He's somebody that I respect. He's been writing for years, very good, on-point solutions. So we are open to conversations. What we don't want to be a part of is the same old recycled promise makers that don't keep their promises. We don't want to be a part of that.
Now, you've endorsed the PDP in Tobago. You just said that, right? How would you say they're doing so far?
I want to give Jackie's jacket. They're dealing with a lot of the low-hanging fruits. You could come in the government office now in short pants and sleeveless. All that is normal because we're in a tropical island. It should have been so a long time ago. They're dealing with low-hanging fruits. I'm asking Farley again, and I'm using the format of this show to ask Farley again, give us the audit. There are at least 10 years of THA budgets that have never been accounted for. That's about $24 billion, and we need to know where that money went. And the PDP has to understand that the difference between them and the PNM has to be accountability and transparency, because if they're not doing that, then what's the point of them?
Now, local government elections is fast approaching. Are you ready for that fight?
We're ready to have a conversation about the fight. We believe that the local government system in Trinidad needs to be abolished, as does the regional health authorities, the way the police service is set up. We believe that it needs to be replaced by something we call a constituency board of supervisors that decentralizes all of the work, national security, health, education, public works, public utilities back to the constituency so that they establish their own board of supervisors and they get budget, similar to how the THA gets to run Tobago. And they get their budget at budget time. The Chancellor of the Exchequer writes checks. It don't mean you're handing them $200 million. It means that you're giving them $200 million worth of approved projects that they provide at election time, but at budget time. But I'm saying that having central government and local government in Trinidad and Tobago is a little bit too much government. I remember under the People's Partnership, there were about 4 or 5 people responsible for water courses, and none of them did anything. We need to make sure that you take away the opportunities for corruption in these things: healthcare, education, public works, public utilities. Those are the big chunks of the budget. If you decentralize that to the communities, the Minister of Works don't have to sit down in Sinclair and decide when Moruga or Point Fortin getting their roads paved. Moruga and Point Fortin will deal with that. And if you do that, if you put the government authority and the maintenance of national infrastructure at the local level, you will be able to see communities thrive and they go back to developing their own sport, their own culture, and then the country could start to work together, because I told people before, a nation is a collection of communities. If we get all of the communities functional, the nation will take care of itself.
Have you started to screen candidates as yet?
We're always screening candidates. In fact, in a very short time, we'll be launching shadow MPs for the next general election. But it's 3 years away, but we're launching our first tranche of 10 shadow MPs in the next couple of weeks. And those shadow MPs, we have this campaign, Philip will fix it, but we also want John will fix it, Felicia will fix it, Ravi will fix it. We want people on the ground that the people in the constituencies come to know as, don't bother to go to your member of parliament. Go to the PEP shadow MP, they'll get it fixed.
Now, I want to ask you, usually this question pops up closer to the election, but I'm still going to ask it now. In terms of funding, how do you see your party funding itself through the local government election? And how difficult has that been over the years at previous elections?
Well, it's an extremely difficult process for 2 reasons. One, we have no campaign finance regulations really in Trinidad and Tobago. There are laws that are not enforced. I made the example of when Stuart Young wrapped a building on the corner of Belmont and the Savannah. The rental of the building and the cost of the wrapping alone exceeded what he was legally allowed to use for an election campaign. In the United States of America, if they cross $1 past what they allowed by budget, they lose the candidate, they lose the candidacy, they can no longer contest the election. And that is what we need to do here, so that deep-pocketed financiers, political speculators and others can't drown the election in noise. We get stupidness, we get plenty bacchanal and not enough focus on the issues. For us, because we are so transparent, we've accounted for every dollar. From the time we were founded on January 18, 2017, we could account for every dollar we've made and spent as a party, and a testimony to Felicia Holder and her team and the hard work that they do. We give a receipt for every $100. So we know that we are transparent and accountable in the work that we've been doing the past 6 years. We believe that that will help us when we go to the public, because we're constantly fundraising. I gave you the example of the barrels with the lights. This is a big project. One man supply the barrel, one man supply the lights, one man buy the paint and paint to them. This is a big project, and people are willing to step up with the Progressive Empowerment Party and put their money where their mouth is, especially because they want a better country. We hope to attract plenty more of that as elections come around.
Mr. Alexander, we are running out of time, but I really do want to ask you this question. There are some who hold the view that you, and there are several others who go into communities to rile them up, to create bacchanal. How do you respond to those comments?
Give me an example of rile up. I go to Maruga and I meet with Lorna, whose house is collapsing because Pure and the Ministry of Works have not done their job to keep their responsibility where the road is concerned. So the road pushed her house off its foundation. Who's going to pay for her house? Should Lorna not get a voice? Should the girls and the women who are being kidnapped and trafficked out of this country not get a voice? Should the 4 divers who were allowed to die in a pipe, no rescue was mounted, the rescue that wanted to be mounted was blocked, should they not have had a voice? What I do is I give people a voice. I give everybody a voice. People come to me about mommy and daddy sitting in a wheelchair for 4 days, 5 days outside a hospital trying to get inside. This is not COVID time. This is normal times, and they still can't get a bed. People come to me when they call for an ambulance and 3 hours has passed and no ambulance in sight. People come to us for that and we give them a voice. I give them a voice. I think that is more important than any statement that we're writing at people. The past couple days, the talk in tongue is who horning who. You hear my voice in that? I don't get involved in that kind of slackness. When I add my voice to something, it's because people are not getting the benefit of the $100 million they spend every year in taxes to pay for the president, the prime minister, the leader of the opposition, all these members of parliament, all these ministers, all these councillors, all these mayors, and they're not getting representation. That's where I come in. I add my voice. I give them a voice. People come to me and say, Mr. Alexander, come to our community and raise the condition of our roads, our drains, because they know that when I come and I light it up, it gets fixed.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Alexander, for joining us here on The Morning Brew.
I want to thank you very, very much for having me. Again, thank you to all your viewers and your listeners. It was an enjoyable experience.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of that interview. We now take a short break. We'll be right back.